The sun was bright that day, too bright for Belfast, the kind of light that makes shadows look wrong. My dad said we just needed to drop off a library book, nothing more, but even at 8 years old, I knew better. The Crumlin Road wasn't a place for people like us. Not then. Not ever. Still, he smiled, calm as always, and told me to use a different name if anyone asked. I remember his hand, steady in mine, the smell of asphalt, the shimmer of heat, and the way every sound seemed distant. Like we were walking through a place that remembered something awful. I thought I was afraid of the people there. But later, I realized it wasn't the people watching us. Listen carefully, because this isn't just another story. The drive into Belfast always made me uneasy, even before that day. The air there felt heavier, like it carried echoes of things people didn't talk about anymore. My dad was quiet, one hand on the wheel, the other tapping along to the static on the radio. The road shimmered with sunlight, but the kind that doesn't feel warm. The kind that feels like it's hiding something. We crossed into the city limits, and the murals began, flags, slogans, faces of men who'd been shot or imprisoned. I didn't understand the politics, not really, but I understood the tension. You could taste it in the back of your throat, like iron. My dad told me again, remember, son, if anyone asks, your name's Ian today. He smiled when he said it, but his voice wasn't smiling. I nodded, clutching the library book in my lap like it was something holy. The car rattled as we turned off onto the Crumlin Road, its rows of terraced houses pressed together like teeth. Laundry fluttered between them, but no one was outside. Not really. Just a few figures, watching quietly from their windows. Dad parked near a corner shop. Just a quick walk, all right, he said. The way he said it made me think it wouldn't be quick at all. We stepped out, and immediately the air changed. It was like walking through a veil, quieter, colder, even though the sun was still strong. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked once, then stopped, as if silenced by something unseen. We started walking, our shoes echoing against the pavement. I remember thinking it was strange how loud our footsteps sounded, like the street was emptying itself just to listen to us. Every few yards, I looked up at my dad, searching for some reassurance, and every time, he just gave me that calm, practiced smile. We passed a small intersection. Ahead of us, maybe a block away, there were men gathered near a parked car. They were talking quietly, moving like they had purpose, but not hurry. One of them stood out tall, long hair, black leather jacket. He was pacing, crossing from one side of the street to the other, whispering to groups, pointing toward the intersection ahead. Even from far away, I could feel it, that hum in the air when something bad is about to happen. My dad's hand tightened around mine, just a little. Then he slowed his pace. We're going right here, he murmured, guiding me down a narrower street. Away from them. That's when I noticed her. She was standing halfway down the block, short red hair, pale face, hands tucked into the pockets of her coat. At first, I thought she was waiting for someone, but then she started walking toward us, fast, eyes locked on my dad. Something in my stomach twisted. I didn't know why, but it felt like a dream I'd had before, one where you're being chased, and every step makes the ground softer beneath you. Afternoon, she said, her voice sharp but trying to sound friendly. Where you two headed? My dad answered easily, almost cheerful. Just down to the library. Got a book to return. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Library, eh? Where you from? Out by Lisburn, he said. Mixed area. Wish it weren't, but what can you do? The words made no sense to me then, but I understood the tone like a secret code. She nodded slowly, eyes flicking between us. And the wee lad? My heart stuttered. I could feel sweat between my fingers where I clutched the book. My dad looked at me. Go on, son. Tell the lady your name. Ian, I said, voice shaking more than I wanted it to. The woman's eyes lingered too long. Her smile faded, replaced with something else. Curiosity, suspicion, maybe recognition. She asked a few more questions. Small talk that didn't sound small. Then finally, Dad nodded politely and said, well, we'll let you get on. We started walking again, and I could feel her watching us. Even after we turned the corner, I swear I could still feel it. That gaze, heavy and probing, like it could reach right through walls. After a while, Dad whispered, don't look back. So, of course, I did. She was still there. Standing at the end of the street, motionless, head tilted slightly, like she was listening for something. Then, as I blinked, she turned and walked toward where the men had been standing. We kept walking, turning down another long, sloping road. Fenced on one side, old houses on the other. The air grew quieter still. It felt like the city itself was holding its breath. Halfway down the hill, I heard footsteps behind us, slow. Deliberate. I turned, and there he was, the tall man with the long hair and leather jacket. He wasn't rushing. He just walked, steady, eyes down. But somehow, even from that distance, I knew he was following us. Dad noticed too. He stopped, crouched slightly to meet my eye, and said softly, run ahead, son. Go see if the library's open. Go on now. I hesitated. Go, he said again, and this time his tone left no room for argument. So I ran. The path seemed to stretch forever, the sound of my own breathing bouncing off the fences. The library door was open, sunlight spilling across the floor inside. I turned to run back, but something made me stop. Up the hill, my dad stood facing the man. Neither of them moved. For a second, I thought time itself had stopped. No wind, no birds, no traffic. Just the two of them, locked in silence. Then the man lowered his head, turned, and walked back the way he came. When my dad reached me, his face was calm, but his hand was trembling. It's all right, he said quietly. We're safe now. But as we walked into the library, I caught sight of our reflections in the glass door, and for a split second, I thought there was someone else behind us. A flicker of red hair, then it was gone. The library smelled faintly of dust and varnish, the kind of smell that makes you think of secrets tucked behind shelves. I tried to focus on that, tried to breathe through the panic that still clung to my chest like a second skin. Dad handed over the book, smiled at the librarian, and I thought for a moment we were just normal. Just another afternoon, but then the windows caught my eye. Across the street, I saw her. The woman. Short red hair, pale skin, eyes locked in that same unblinking stare. She wasn't moving, not really, just waiting. And the longer I looked, the heavier the air felt, like it was pressing down on me from all sides. I felt my chest tighten. Don't worry, son, Dad said softly, as if reading my mind. Just keep inside. Stay close. I nodded, clutching his sleeve. But the library didn't feel safe. Not really. Outside, the world had gone quiet in a way that wasn't normal. The distant shouts and clangs of the city seemed to fade, replaced with a hum low, vibrating, almost alive. I didn't hear it with my ears. I felt it in my bones. We finished returning the book and left, Dad steering us away from the main road, down narrow side streets. But the woman was still there. I saw her move between shadows like she had a map in her mind of every alley and fence, always one step ahead of us. My skin crawled. Something about the way she walked made me think she wasn't just human. She didn't hurry, but she never seemed to pause either. "Keep talking to me, son," Dad whispered. "Tell me something normal. About school, about friends." I tried, but every word felt wrong. My voice sounded small, frightened, even to me. She was following us. I could feel it. And the hum of the air around her, it grew stronger when I looked her way. We passed a narrow alley, and for a moment, I thought she'd disappeared. Relief washed over me. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw her reflection in a puddle. She wasn't walking. She was floating, just a little above the ground, her red hair aflare against the gray stone. I blinked. She was gone. "Did you see that?" I whispered, gripping Dad's arm. He didn't answer right away. Just nodded slowly, eyes scanning every corner, every window. "Keep walking," he said. "Don't look back." I didn't. We turned another corner and my dad paused at a crossroad. He crouched down, close to me, and I could feel the sweat on my forehead, hot and prickly. "Listen," he said. "We're not alone. I can't tell you everything, but you need to trust me. Sometimes, people can sense danger we can't see. Sometimes, they can feel it too." I shivered. The words didn't make sense, but I understood. I knew what he meant. We moved on. Every footstep echoed like thunder in the silent streets. Occasionally, I caught the faintest shadow at the edge of my vision, a flicker of movement, the trace of red hair, a silhouette that dissolved before I could stare. The city seemed to breathe around us, holding its secrets tightly, like it knew we shouldn't be there. At the top of a long slope, we stopped again. The library was somewhere below, but the path was steep, fenced on one side, houses pressed close on the other. Dad's hand gripped mine tightly. "Halfway down," he said. "Keep your eyes open and stay close." I could feel it again, the hum, the weight, like the city itself was watching, waiting. And then, from the corner of my eye, I saw movement behind the fences. The leather jacket man. Long hair, tall, silent. Not running, not walking, just there. Watching. Dad nudged me forward. "Go ahead. Check the library. I'll be right behind you." I didn't want to. Every instinct screamed to run the other way, to hide, to scream. But I went. My legs carried me down the path, heart hammering, ears straining for the slightest sound, the shift of a shadow, the soft footfall behind me, the whispering hum of the air that seemed alive. The library doors swung open. Light spilled across the pavement. I ran inside, turned, and looked out. The street was empty, quiet. Too quiet. I ran back, expecting to see Dad, expecting to see the man in the leather jacket. But when I reached the top of the slope, they were both gone. The silence pressed in on me, thick and heavy, and then I heard it. Soft, almost imperceptible, but growing. Footsteps behind the fences. Slow, deliberate. The hum, vibrating now like a pulse in my chest. I spun around, but saw nothing. The street was empty. Dad's voice broke the silence, calm and steady, though I could feel the tension in it. "It's okay. We're okay." But I didn't believe him, not yet. Something was still there, just beyond the fence. Watching, waiting. The path down to the library was steeper than I remembered. Each step echoed sharply, bouncing off the walls of the terraced houses like a warning. My chest burned, lungs working harder than they should have, and every so often, I felt that strange pulse in the air, that quiet vibration that made my hair stand on end. It was as if the city itself had a heartbeat, and it was tuned to our fear. I glanced over my shoulder. Nothing. The street was empty, silent except for the scrape of my shoes on the pavement and the occasional distant hum of traffic far below. But I knew it was there. I could feel it in my stomach, in the back of my neck, crawling beneath my skin. The woman, the man in the leather jacket, even if I couldn't see them, I knew they were close. Closer than anyone should ever be without warning. Dad kept his hand on my shoulder, light but firm, guiding me down. "Stay close," he said, voice low, almost swallowed by the quiet. "Keep your eyes forward. Don't panic." I tried to obey, but the street seemed to bend around us. Shadows clung to corners, stretching, twisting in the sunlight. A pile of crates by a fence looked like a crouching figure. A stray cat darted across the road, but its movement felt deliberate, like it was watching us. I swallowed hard, feeling the hum thrum through my bones. Halfway down the slope, I stopped. My legs refused to move. I thought I saw someone standing at the edge of a shadow waiting. A flicker of red hair, just for a moment. I blinked, gone. "Go on," Dad urged, calm, but his eyes scanned every alley, every window. "We're almost there." I ran. My shoes scuffed against the pavement, my chest rising and falling too fast. I wanted to scream, but the hum made me feel muted, as if the air itself was thickening around my throat, and then I felt it, a presence. Not human, not quite. Cold, dense, heavy. It lingered just beyond the fence, just outside the corner of my vision. I froze. My heart leapt. My palms slicked with sweat. I could feel its attention, sharp and unblinking, tracing the outline of my body, crawling along my back. "Keep moving," Dad said, and I realized he was no longer beside me, but further down, watching, waiting. I ran again, the hum rising like an invisible drumbeat. At the bottom of the path, the library came into view. Its doors were open, the interior spilling light into the afternoon. Relief hit me like a wave, warm and sudden. But then I glanced to the side, toward the fence that ran along the path, and froze. There he was. The man in the leather jacket. Long hair, tall, unmoving. Watching, but not walking. Not running. Just observing. And the moment our eyes met, or I imagined they did, a shiver crawled up my spine. The hum intensified, vibrating in the air, thick like fog. I ran inside. My lungs burned. I turned back, expecting Dad to follow, expecting the man to advance. But the library doors swung shut behind me, and the world outside seemed to pause. "Silence, Dad," I whispered. My voice sounded tiny in the vast room. The librarian glanced at me, puzzled, but didn't say anything. I darted to the window. Nothing. Empty street. No woman, no leather jacket, just the long slope disappearing into shadow and sunlight. But I could still feel it. That attention. The pulse. The city itself was watching, remembering. When I finally found Dad, he was at the doorway, calm, hands in pockets, scanning the street. "Go to the counter," he said. "I'll check outside." I obeyed, trying to ignore the thrum that seemed to ripple through the walls. Every step I took toward the counter, I felt smaller, weaker, as if the air itself wanted to press me down, keep me invisible. Dad returned moments later, shaking his head slightly. "We're fine. Just stay close to me." But his jaw was tight, hands clenched, eyes flicking toward the path we'd just descended. I followed him out, and immediately the air changed again. The hum was stronger now, thicker, vibrating through my chest, making my teeth ache. Shadows clung to every corner, and I realized the city remembered the blood spilled here, remembered the hatred and terror that had soaked into the bricks and asphalt. It was awake, and it was aware of us. We moved quickly, back up the slope toward the exit. I felt it again, just behind the fence over my shoulder. The leather jacket man. He wasn't moving toward us, but the way his presence lingered, heavy, oppressive, made me stumble. Dad's grip was steady on my arm. "Almost there," he said. "Keep walking." I didn't understand how he could be calm, how he could ignore it. But I obeyed, legs stiff, lungs burning, every instinct screaming to run. To hide. At the top of the slope, we paused. The library, now a distant rectangle of light below us. Dad let go of my arm, turned to scan the streets. He squinted. "We're clear," he said. "But stay close. Something watches here." I swallowed hard, nodding. The hum still vibrated in my chest. I could feel it tracing my every movement, whispering to me with some language I couldn't understand. And then I saw her, the woman. Short red hair, standing at the far corner, looking directly at us. Her gaze wasn't casual. It wasn't human. It carried the same weight as the leather jacket man, the same pulse as the city itself. And for a second, I thought I saw her lips move, but no sound came out. She didn't blink. She just waited. I shivered. My dad noticed, but didn't acknowledge her. He just held my hand, guiding me away. "Keep moving," he said. Almost safe. But I wasn't sure we ever could be. The shadows in the back street had grown longer. The hum was louder. And somewhere in the distance, the city whispered a warning I didn't yet understand. Something was watching. And it would not forget. The library staircase smelled faintly of damp wood and old varnish, each step groaning under my weight. I held my dad's hand tightly, though my grip was slippery with sweat. The hum had followed us inside, muted but insistent, vibrating through the walls, through the floorboards, like it was waiting for something. I tried to tell myself it was just nerves, the memory of streets and shadows pressing against me. But instinct is sharper than reason, and mine was screaming. There was something in that library, something aware of our every move, like it had been lying in wait for years. Dad led me down the staircase slowly. Each step echoed, sharp and uneven, bouncing off the walls in patterns that made my ears ring. I tried to focus on the sound of my own breathing, the rhythm of my heartbeat, but it seemed to match the hum instead, synchronized, pulling me into the bottom. The library floor was quieter, almost unnervingly so. Shelves loomed like walls, casting shadows that shifted with the angle of the sunlight. The red-haired woman could be anywhere, hiding, waiting, her attention splitting the air like a knife. I could almost feel her gaze crawling over my shoulder, testing me, trying to read my fear. Dad paused at the counter. "Check behind the shelves," he whispered. "See if anyone's here." I nodded, legs stiff, every nerve on fire. I moved between the aisles, the smell of paper and dust clinging to my nose, trying to convince myself that the library was safe. And yet, the hum throbbed stronger, like a pulse, as though the building itself remembered every violent whisper that had ever passed through it. From the corner of my eye, a shadow moved, just a flicker, quick, impossible to pinpoint. My stomach dropped. My hand flew to my chest. I wanted to call out to Dad, but the hum seemed to wrap around my throat, keeping words from forming. Then I heard its soft, deliberate footsteps behind the shelves. Not mine. Someone else. Moving slowly. Calculated. I froze. The hairs on my arms stood straight. I wanted to run, but my legs refused. I could feel the presence, thick, heavy, like a pressure pushing down from above, around, inside me. I could not see them, but I knew. Someone was there, watching, waiting. Dad's voice cut through the silence, calm but firm. It's okay, son. Keep going. Just stay focused. I edged forward, trying to peer past the shelves. And then I saw it, a flash of long hair, dark as smoke, and the gleam of a leather jacket in the shadows. The man, watching, immovable. And behind him, a flicker of red, short hair, slipping between the stacks like smoke through a crack. I gasped. The hum surged, vibrating in my chest, in my head, twisting reality. I stumbled back into Dad, heart pounding. He's here, I whispered. Both of them. Dad's eyes narrowed. He didn't flinch. He only tightened his grip on my hand. I know. Keep calm. Don't let them see fear. I wanted to argue, wanted to scream, wanted to run. But the moment I looked again, the shelves seemed empty. No man, no woman, just the thick shadows stretching across the floor. And yet, the hum persisted, stronger now, pulsating, almost alive. Come on, Dad said. We need to move. We made our way to the back of the library. The far corner felt darker, colder, though sunlight poured in from the windows above. I could feel the weight of the city, the day, the memories of what had happened here decades ago, pressing down. And I understood the psychic presence wasn't just the people, not just the woman or the man. It was the fear itself, amplified, lingering, waiting for any misstep. As we descended another short flight of stairs toward the exit that led to the library's back alley, I heard it again. Footsteps behind us, soft, almost imperceptible, but they weren't ours. My throat tightened. I could hear the faintest whispering, not words, but a sound that made the hairs on my neck rise. Dad's hand squeezed mine. Almost there, he said. Keep moving. Ignore it. I didn't dare to look over my shoulder. The hum had become a roar inside my chest, the pressure thick and suffocating. And yet, somehow, we kept moving. One step after another, toward the door that would lead us back to the street. Toward safety, or something that felt like safety. As we reached the last step, the back alley stretched before us, empty in the bright afternoon. I thought for a moment we had made it. Then a shadow flitted across the top of the fence, a glimpse of red hair, sharp and fleeting, and the hum surged. My chest constricted. I realized something then. It wasn't just the people. The city itself was awake, watching, remembering, and it had marked us. Dad pushed open the door, sunlight cutting through the shadows. Let's go, he said, voice steady, but I could feel it. We had not left it behind. Not yet. The alley seemed longer than I remembered. Every shadow held a presence. Every echo of our footsteps carried weight. And I knew, with a certainty that made my stomach twist, that the red-haired woman and the leather jacket man were only part of it. Something older, something darker, had noticed us that day, and it was patient. The alley stretched on, narrow and oppressive, the walls on either side pressing closer as we walked. Every shadow seemed to lean toward us, every echo of our footsteps stretched unnaturally, like the city itself was bending to watch. I could feel it in my chest, the hum pulsing stronger, thicker, almost like a heartbeat that wasn't ours. Dad held my hand tight, guiding me past piles of rubbish, old crates, and the occasional stray cat, which scuttled away at the last second, as if aware of what followed. "Stay close," he murmured. "Eyes forward. Don't let them see you sweat." I nodded, swallowing hard, but I could feel them. The red-haired woman, somewhere ahead, just beyond the edge of my vision, moving silently, her presence brushing the air. And him, the leather jacket man, tall, dark, immovable, his attention like a weight pressing down on my back. I didn't dare look over my shoulder, but the hum, it throbbed in my ears, vibrating through the pavement, through the walls, through my bones. It wasn't just fear. It was anticipation. Something was waiting for a moment for us to slip. Dad slowed. We approached a corner where the alley bent sharply. He stopped, crouched slightly, eyes scanning. I could feel the city holding its breath. The distant sun seemed weaker here, the shadows darker. "There," Dad whispered. "That corner." I dared to glance. A shadow flickered across the bend. I thought it was nothing, a trick of the light. But then, a flash of red hair, sharp and fleeting, followed by the black leather of the man's jacket, dark against the stone wall. They weren't moving. Not really. Just waiting. Watching. The hum surged, louder now, synchronized with my own heartbeat. I stumbled back slightly, and my hand slipped from Dad's. He grabbed it instantly. "Careful," he said. "They can sense panic." I froze, trying to control my breathing. The alley around us felt alive, walls closing in, the shadows stretching. Somewhere, faintly, the echoes of gunfire long past seemed to ring through the air, like ghosts of the city's violence had been woven into its very bricks. The red-haired woman stepped forward slightly, and though I didn't hear a word, I felt it, a whisper in my mind. Faint and fleeting, like a warning I couldn't understand. The leather jacket man shifted as well, just enough to remind me he was aware of our every move. Dad tightened his grip on my arm. "We go now," he said. And we moved, slowly, deliberately. Each step measured, careful, every muscle tense. The alley seemed to stretch farther, the shadows twisting to follow, and I realized something that made my stomach twist. The city itself was alive, and it remembered. We passed the corner. The red-haired woman didn't follow immediately, but I could feel her attention lingering, clawing at the back of my mind. The man in the leather jacket fell a few steps behind us, silent, steady. Every instinct screamed to run, but Dad's hand on mine kept me rooted, controlled. The path began to slope downward toward a wider street. Relief should have come, but the hum persisted, like a pulse I couldn't escape. Every trash can, every window, every alleyway seemed to hide eyes that didn't belong to anyone alive. I tried to speak, but the words felt trapped in my throat. My lips trembled. "Dad, there, shoot," he said. "Not yet. Keep walking." I nodded, swallowing hard. I could feel sweat running down my back, stickiness between my fingers and his palm. And then, just for a second, I saw something that made my stomach leap, a flash of red hair at the end of the alley, hovering above the ground like smoke, eyes locked on me. Not moving, not blinking, just watching. The leather jacket man had vanished, but I could feel him, still pressing at the edges of my awareness, like a shadow I could never shake. Dad led me across the street to a small side road, quieter, narrower, though it did little to ease my fear. "Almost there," he whispered. "Keep calm. Focus." I wanted to scream. I wanted to bolt. But every instinct told me if I ran, if I panicked, the presence, the city, the red-haired woman, the man would claim me. We moved slowly, shadows stretching longer with the afternoon sun. Every alley, every door, every window seemed to hold memory, attention, waiting. I realized with a sinking certainty that the danger wasn't just the people. It was the city itself. The hatred, the fear, the violence, it had settled into every brick and asphalt seam, and it was alive. We turned another corner, and Dad finally stopped at the top of a steep path, the library visible at the bottom. He crouched to my level. "You did well," he said quietly. "Almost there. One more stretch." I nodded, gripping his hand as tightly as I could. But I could feel it again, the hum, the attention. The red-haired woman and the leather jacket man weren't the only ones here. Something older, something darker, had noticed us, and it was patient. The path down to the library stretched before us like a long, dark ribbon. Even in the daylight, the shadows clung stubbornly to the walls, crawling along fences and house fronts as if reaching for us. My hand remained in my dad's, though the grip was sticky with sweat, my heart hammering so loudly I was sure the city itself could hear it. The hum followed us, subtle at first, then growing heavier with each step. It was no longer just a sound. It was a pressure, a presence pressing in from every direction, vibrating through my chest, twisting my thoughts. I tried to ignore it, tried to focus on the library at the bottom of the hill, but the street didn't want us to forget it existed. "Stay close," Dad whispered. His voice was calm, steady, but I could feel the tension in his muscles. Every step he took was careful, measured, like he was walking on ice over something far darker than the pavement beneath our feet. I dared a glance back. Nothing visible. No red hair, no black leather. But the hum, it surged in my ears. I felt it at the nape of my neck, crawling down my spine. I knew they were there, watching, waiting. And the city, the very streets, were aware of our presence too. Halfway down the path, I stumbled over a loose stone. My foot scraped against the pavement, loud in the unnatural silence. My stomach twisted. The hum pulsed violently, like a warning. Dad crouched slightly, adjusting my arm. "Careful. Don't give them a reason," he said, eyes scanning every shadow, every corner. I nodded, swallowing hard, forcing my legs to move again. The library was closer now, sunlight spilling over its doors, but the shadows around us had grown longer, darker, reaching for us in ways I didn't understand. And then I saw her, the red-haired woman, standing at the corner of a fence, motionless. Her eyes locked on me, piercing. Not blinking, not moving, just watching. And though she didn't move, I could feel her attention brushing over me, like a hand I couldn't see, cold and heavy. The leather jacket man appeared behind her, long hair catching the light, his silhouette impossibly still. He didn't move, but I could sense the weight of his presence. He was like a shadow made flesh, tethered to the city's pulse and aware of every thought I had. I froze. My chest constricted. I wanted to scream, to bolt, to hide, but Dad's hand on mine held me in place. "Keep going," he said, voice low, calm, unyielding. We started moving again. Every step felt like walking through molasses. The hum had become a roar, vibrating in my chest, in my head, in the very air around us. It was as if the streets themselves were alive, feeding on our fear, marking us as intruders. The red-haired woman's gaze never wavered. Every so often, I thought I saw her flicker, as if she was not quite human, her form bending, stretching with the shadows. I could feel her thoughts brushing against mine, probing, searching for weakness. "Almost there," Dad whispered, his voice a lifeline in the oppressive tension. "Keep calm. Focus." I clenched my fists, teeth gritted, forcing myself to obey. The library doors grew larger, brighter, a beacon of normalcy, of safety. And yet, I knew we were not safe. The psychic weight of the city, the lingering hate, the planning of something terrible, it pressed on us, constant, unyielding. We reached the last stretch, the slope becoming steeper. Dad paused, crouching to my level. "Listen," he said quietly. "There are eyes everywhere. But if we walk carefully, we can leave their notice behind. Don't panic. Just step quietly." I nodded, swallowing hard. My legs shook. The hum was deafening now, vibrating through my chest, twisting my thoughts, making the city feel like a living thing breathing around us. Then I saw it, the flash of black leather, the glint of sunlight on long hair, moving along the fence. My stomach dropped. The man had shifted, following. But Dad didn't flinch. He led me forward, slow, steady, refusing to show fear. The library doors were finally in sight. Sunlight bathed them, warm and inviting. I felt a strange mix of hope and dread. We were almost there. Almost out of the street, almost away from the psychic weight that clung to the Crumlin road like a living thing, and yet, I could feel it, the red-haired woman, the leather jacket man, the city itself, still watching, still waiting. Dad reached the door first, holding it open for me. I stumbled inside, gulping the safe, ordinary air. The hum dimmed slightly, though I could still feel its pulse in the walls and floorboards. Dad let me go, crouching slightly, scanning the street one last time. "We're okay," he said. But I knew, even as he spoke, that we were not. The presence, the attention, the planning of violence, it was far from finished. I caught a glimpse through the glass door. The red-haired woman stood at the corner, motionless, unwavering. The leather jacket man was gone, but I knew he hadn't left. They had only observed, marked us, and waited for the right moment, and I realized, with a sinking certainty, that this street, this city, this presence, it remembered everything. Every act, every plan, every heartbeat of fear. And we had just stepped into its awareness. The library was bright, safe, ordinary. But outside, the corner of red and leather lingered, a psychic echo of something violent and inevitable. I swallowed hard, gripping the book tighter, and followed Dad further inside, knowing we had survived the descent, but not yet the day. Something terrible was still coming. The library smelled faintly of paper and old polish, a familiar scent that should have comforted me. But it didn't. Not really. The city outside pressed against the walls, its pulse lingering in the air like a heartbeat I couldn't escape. I could still feel it, the red-haired woman, the leather jacket man, even the shadows themselves, watching, waiting. Dad led me to a side room where the afternoon light pooled in uneven patches on the floor. "Sit here," he whispered. "I'll check outside." I nodded, but my stomach twisted as soon as he stepped through the door. Alone, I could feel the hum stronger, vibrating in my chest, pressing my thoughts into sharp, disjointed fragments. The library, once safe, now felt like a cage. I could almost hear the city whispering through the walls, every brick steeped in memory and violence. I pressed my back against a bookshelf, trying to calm my breathing. But then, soft at first, a barely audible scrape, footsteps. Someone moving outside. Not loud, deliberate, but light, careful, patient. My pulse spiked. I peeked through a crack in the doorway. Across the street, shadows clung to the alleys, stretching unnaturally, coiling around lampposts and fences. The red-haired woman stood there, still as a statue, yet impossible to ignore. The leather jacket man moved closer, silent, methodical, eyes fixed ahead, like a predator sizing up its prey. I swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the doorframe. The hum surged, pounding in my skull. I wanted to call Dad, to warn him, but the sound caught in my throat. The city itself seemed to tense, to hold its breath. Every alley, every corner, every faint ripple of light became a potential threat. Dad returned quickly, crouching beside me. "We need to leave," he said quietly. "Now. Keep calm." I nodded. My legs trembled as he guided me toward the back exit. The library doors swung open, light spilling onto the alley, but the shadows seemed alive. The red-haired woman's gaze cut into me, sharp and unblinking. The man in the leather jacket had shifted closer, still silent, still aware. We moved down the alley, slow, deliberate. Dad's hand kept my own steady, but I could feel the hum twisting, pulling at the edges of my consciousness. The street, the air, the city itself, it remembered the fear, the hatred, the violence, and now it was watching us. Halfway down, I felt a presence brush past me, light but heavy, like a weight pressing into my shoulder. I froze, chest tightening. Dad squeezed my hand. "Keep moving," he whispered. A faint breeze stirred the papers near a dumpster. I thought I saw red hair flicker again, but when I blinked, nothing. Still, I could feel it, attention, focus. Waiting. At the corner, the street opened slightly. A small, parked car glinted in the sunlight. Through the windshield, I thought I saw movement. Figures huddled, whispering. My stomach churned. I remembered the stories, the whispers of planning, the murmur of something terrible about to happen. And I realized this was it. The red-haired woman shifted, just a step forward, like she had sensed our awareness. The hum pulsed violently, vibrating in the air, in my chest, in my mind. I felt my heartbeat racing, echoing the rhythm, matching the city's own. Dad paused, crouched low. "Go," he whispered. "Run ahead. Check the street." "I'll follow." My stomach lurched. "What if just go," he said. His eyes were sharp, focused. "I'll handle the rest." I sprinted down the alley toward the open street. Each footfall echoed unnaturally, bouncing off the buildings, magnified, stretched. Shadows seemed to twitch, flicker, coil around corners. I could feel the attention, the psychic weight of it, pressing on my back, making my legs burn. At the end of the alley, I glimpsed the library's doors behind me. Dad stepping out slowly, hands open, scanning, calm but tense. And then I saw it, the leather jacket man, standing halfway down the street, long hair catching the sun, unmoving yet fully aware, and the red-haired woman, closer now, her eyes fixed on me. Not human, not fully. Her attention pierced through me, reading, weighing, testing. The hum surged, unbearable now, vibrating through my skull. I ran further, heart hammering, lungs burning. Dad followed a few steps behind, ready, waiting, exuding calm like a shield. I glanced over my shoulder. The street was alive with shadows, echoes of past violence, memories of terror stitched into the bricks. I understood then. We had walked straight into a planning of death. The figures, the city, the memories all aligned. The library door swung open. I ducked inside. Dad followed, and for a moment, the hum dimmed, the pressure eased. Safe? Not yet. The shadows, the red hair, the black leather, they had only marked us. Only waited. I pressed my back to the door, chest heaving. Dad looked out the window, scanning, calm but tense. "They won't follow here," he said. "Not yet, but they'll be back." I nodded, though my stomach twisted. I could still feel it, the attention, the planning, the city alive around us. And I knew, with that deep, primal certainty, that the murder, the violence, the cruelty that had been planned, we had glimpsed it, witnessed it, survived it by chance. But it wasn't over. The red-haired woman moved away from the street, slipping like smoke into the alleys. The leather jacket man vanished, but I could feel him still there, still waiting, tethered to the pulse of the city, watching for the slightest misstep. And I understood, in that quiet, suffocating moment, that the city itself had marked us, remembered us. And something terrible had been set in motion that day. We were alive. But the shadow over the street, it lingered, patient, hungry, watching. The library smelled faintly of old wood and dust, but it no longer offered comfort. Outside, the sun fell lower, stretching shadows across the streets, making the alleys appear longer, darker, more twisted. I could feel the weight of the city pressing against the windows, pressing against the walls, pressing against me. Dad kept his hand on mine, though now the grip felt like a lifeline tethered to a world that might vanish at any second. "Stay close," he whispered. "Don't look at the corners. Don't imagine things that aren't there." I wanted to protest, but I knew better. The presence, whatever it was, didn't need eyes to see me. I could feel it brushing along the edges of my mind, probing, testing, measuring my fear. Every breath, every heartbeat, every flicker of thought vibrated in the air, like the city itself was alive, watching, remembering. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to make myself small, invisible. The hum thrummed in my chest, pulsing with a rhythm that wasn't mine. And then I heard it, soft, deliberate, almost imperceptible. Footsteps outside. Not one, but two, moving in careful synchronization. Dad's head snapped toward the door. "Quiet," he said, voice barely a whisper. "Stay here. Don't move." I obeyed, chest tight, every muscle trembling. The footsteps paused. Then came a soft scrape, something sliding along the pavement. I could feel it more than hear it, an awareness pressing into me from outside. I wanted to run, to hide, to disappear entirely. But I couldn't. Dad's presence grounded me. He didn't flinch, didn't panic. He simply scanned, calculating, waiting. I realized then that he had learned to sense this weight of attention, long before I was born. The red-haired woman appeared first, outside the window, motionless. Her gaze pierced through the glass as if it weren't even there. The hum surged violently, vibrating through the floorboards, through my chest, through my skull. My teeth ached from it, and then I sensed him, the leather jacket man, not moving but present, watching, waiting. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run, to scream, to vanish into the walls. But I remained frozen because I knew that any sudden movement would summon something worse than fear. Dad whispered, "We need to move. Now, walk slowly, carefully." I nodded, swallowing hard. Each step down the library corridor felt like walking through invisible wires, every footfall measured, every breath monitored. The presence followed us unseen, but tangible, a pressure that clung to our bones, to our shadows. We reached the back door. Dad glanced outside, scanning the street. The alleys were empty, but the pulse, the awareness remained. The city had remembered us. Every brick, every shadow, Every narrow passage carried our intrusion like a scar. "Go," he whispered. "Step lightly. Eyes forward. Don't panic." I obeyed. The alley stretched before us, the sun dipping lower, turning the walls a dull orange. But the shadows seemed to coil, stretching toward us, bending in ways that defied logic. The red-haired woman was nowhere visible, yet I could feel her attention pressing, probing. The leather jacket man was gone, yet his presence lingered like smoke in the air. Halfway down the path, I stumbled. My foot caught a crack in the pavement. The hum surged violently, crashing through my head, my chest, my mind. I gasped, gripping Dad's arm. "Steady," he said. "It's okay. Keep moving." The air itself seemed to thicken, press down on us, make each step heavier. I could feel the eyes of the city watching. The footsteps of the past, the planning of violence, the long memory of hate, it was all here, condensed into a psychic pressure that sought to consume us. And then, for a moment, I thought I saw them, a flash of red hair, a glint of black leather, moving just beyond the corner of my vision. Not human, not fully, but aware. And I knew that if I looked directly, if I let my attention linger, I would see more than I wanted. Dad guided me toward the bottom of the alley, to the library doors. Light spilled across the pavement, a thin veil of safety. But the hum, the attention, the unseen threat, it didn't leave. It lingered, pressing, waiting. Patient. We reached the library door. Dad opened it slowly, his eyes scanning the street one last time. "Almost safe," he whispered. "Inside, and we're clear, for now." I stumbled inside, heart hammering, chest tight, every muscle trembling. The presence seemed to recede slightly, but I could still feel it, a psychic weight pressing into my consciousness. The red-haired woman and the leather jacket man hadn't left. They had only observed, marked us, and now waited. Dad crouched beside me. "Listen," he said. "This street, this city, it remembers. It watches. You don't see everything, but it's there. The planning, the violence, it all waits." I nodded, swallowing hard, realizing the truth. The library was bright, safe, ordinary. But outside, in the alleys, in the shadows, in the very walls of the city, something terrible was coming, and we had glimpsed it. We were alive. But the unseen threat lingered. Patient. Watching. Hungry. And I knew, with every nerve in my body, that it would not forget us. The path back felt longer than it had coming down. Shadows stretched across the fences and walls, twisting unnaturally, as if the city itself were alive and leaning in. I held my dad's hand tighter than ever, sweat clinging to my palms, heart hammering like a drum. Every nerve screamed that we weren't alone. Dad kept his voice low and steady. "Eyes forward. Step lightly. Don't let them see fear." I obeyed, though my stomach churned, twisting with every echo of the past steps. The hum was back, stronger now, vibrating through the bricks, through the street, through me. It wasn't just a sound. It was awareness. The city remembering. The city watching. I glanced at the fences and the windows lining the path, and for a fleeting second, I saw the red-haired woman's reflection in a glass pane. Not real, not tangible, but the image burned in my vision, like the city itself was warning me, alerting me of the danger we couldn't yet comprehend. Halfway up the slope, a soft noise caught my attention, deliberate, almost human. Footsteps behind us. Not ours. Light, careful, measured. My pulse spiked, chest tightening. Dad slowed, crouched slightly, scanning. "Stay calm. Don't run. Let me handle this. I nodded, gripping his hand. Every instinct screamed to bolt, to hide, to vanish into the shadows. But I knew better. Panic was a beacon here. Any sudden movement would draw attention we couldn't survive. The alley seemed alive, every shadow bending, every crack in the pavement stretching toward us. I could feel it. The red-haired woman and the leather jacket man weren't just present. They were intertwined with the very pulse of the city. Waiting, watching, calculating. A soft breeze stirred papers along the fence, and I thought I saw a flicker of black leather. The leather jacket man, I realized, had repositioned himself, always just beyond the corner of my vision, tethered to our movements. Dad whispered, almost there. Eyes forward, one step at a time. We continued slowly. Each footfall echoed, magnified, as if the street itself were amplifying our presence. I could feel every heartbeat, every breath, resonating with the hum. It was suffocating. It was alive. It wanted something from us, or perhaps it merely wanted to mark us, imprint our fear into its memory forever. A bend in the path. A soft movement flickered in the corner of my eye. Red hair, short, fiery, impossible to ignore. The woman had stepped out of the shadows, just enough for me to sense her. Not close, but present. Watching. Patient. Dad's grip tightened. Don't look. Keep moving. I nodded, though my legs threatened to buckle. Each step became a battle between instinct and obedience. Behind us, the hum seemed to thrum louder, synchronized with my own racing heart, and I felt a prickling at the base of my skull, like the city itself was whispering threats we couldn't understand. The slope leveled, leading toward the main street we had crossed earlier. Sunlight broke through the narrowing alley, but the shadows lingered, reaching, stretching. And in those shadows, I felt them: awareness, patience, focus. Not just the woman, not just the man, but something older, something darker, something stitched into the very memory of the street. I stumbled slightly, and Dad steadied me immediately. Careful, he said. Don't give them anything. We reached the top of the path, where the street opened, familiar and yet transformed. The red-haired woman and the leather jacket man were gone, at least visible. But the attention remained, an invisible weight pressing into my back, pressing into my mind. The hum had returned to a low, insistent pulse, like the city breathing around us, alive with memory, alive with intent. Dad glanced at me, eyes sharp, calculating. We're almost safe, he said. But I could see in his gaze that he knew the danger hadn't ended. Not by far. We walked to the intersection, where the group of men had been earlier. The street looked ordinary, empty. But I could feel it, the planning, the memory of violence, the anticipation of something terrible. It lingered in the air, thick, tangible. Dad stopped, crouched slightly, scanning. Keep your head down. We'll cross carefully. Eyes forward. I followed, each step deliberate, measured, heart-hammering. The red-haired woman and the leather jacket man were gone, but the city itself had marked us. Every brick, every crack, every shadow carried our intrusion, and then a faint sound, a horn, distant but sharp, carrying across the street. A taxi. My stomach twisted. I remembered the murmurs, the whispers, the planning, the attention we had felt. The presence we had glimpsed that afternoon. It hadn't been idle. Dad squeezed my hand. Go, he whispered. Stay with me. Eyes forward. We crossed the street, and for a brief moment, I felt lighter, almost normal. But the hum, the awareness, the psychic weight, it did not leave. It lingered, patient, watching, waiting for the next moment of fear. We reached the other side. The street looked empty. Safe? I didn't believe it. Not fully. Dad finally relaxed slightly. "We're clear," he said, though the line of tension in his jaw told me otherwise. For now. I swallowed hard, realizing the truth. We had survived the day by luck, by caution, by instinct. But the shadow over the street, the attention, the planning, the unseen threat, it remained. Waiting, patient, hungry, and I knew, with a certainty that made my chest tighten, that we had only just glimpsed the edge of something terrible. The city remembered. And so did we. The path back felt longer than it had coming down. Shadows stretched across the fences and walls, twisting unnaturally, as if the city itself were alive and leaning in. I held my dad's hand tighter than ever, sweat clinging to my palms, heart hammering like a drum. Every nerve screamed that we weren't alone. Dad kept his voice low and steady. Eyes forward. Step lightly. Don't let them see fear. I obeyed, though my stomach churned, twisting with every echo of the past steps. The hum was back, stronger now, vibrating through the bricks, through the street, through me. It wasn't just a sound. It was awareness. The city remembering. The city watching. I glanced at the fences and the windows lining the path, and for a fleeting second, I saw the red-haired woman's reflection in a glass pane. Not real, not tangible, but the image burned in my vision, like the city itself was warning me, alerting me of the danger we couldn't yet comprehend. Halfway up the slope, a soft noise caught my attention, deliberate, almost human. Footsteps behind us. Not ours. Light, careful, measured. My pulse spiked, chest tightening. Dad slowed, crouched slightly, scanning. Stay calm. Don't run. Let me handle this. I nodded, gripping his hand. Every instinct screamed to bolt, to hide, to vanish into the shadows. But I knew better. Panic was a beacon here. Any sudden movement would draw attention we couldn't survive. The alley seemed alive, every shadow bending, every crack in the pavement stretching toward us. I could feel it. The red-haired woman and the leather jacket man weren't just present. They were intertwined with the very pulse of the city. Waiting, watching, calculating. A soft breeze stirred papers along the fence, and I thought I saw a flicker of black leather. The leather jacket man, I realized, had repositioned himself, always just beyond the corner of my vision, tethered to our movements. Dad whispered, almost there. Eyes forward. One step at a time. We continued slowly. Each footfall echoed, magnified, as if the street itself were amplifying our presence. I could feel every heartbeat, every breath, resonating with the hum. It was suffocating. It was alive. It wanted something from us, or perhaps it merely wanted to mark us, imprint our fear into its memory forever. A bend in the path, a soft movement flickered in the corner of my eye. Red hair, short, fiery, impossible to ignore. The woman had stepped out of the shadows, just enough for me to sense her. Not close, but present. Watching. Patient. Dad's grip tightened. Don't look. Keep moving. I nodded, though my legs threatened to buckle. Each step became a battle between instinct and obedience. Behind us, the hum seemed to thrum louder, synchronized with my own racing heart, and I felt a prickling at the base of my skull, like the city itself was whispering threats we couldn't understand. The slope leveled, leading toward the main street we had crossed earlier. Sunlight broke through the narrowing alley, But the shadows lingered, reaching, stretching. And in those shadows, I felt them: awareness, patience, focus. Not just the woman, not just the man, but something older, something darker, something stitched into the very memory of the street. I stumbled slightly, and Dad steadied me immediately. "Careful," he said. "Don't give them anything." We reached the top of the path, where the street opened, familiar and yet transformed. The red-haired woman and the leather jacket man were gone, at least visible. But the attention remained, an invisible weight pressing into my back, pressing into my mind. The hum had returned to a low, insistent pulse, like the city breathing around us, alive with memory, alive with intent. Dad glanced at me, eyes sharp, calculating. "We're almost safe," he said. But I could see in his gaze that he knew the danger hadn't ended. Not by far. We walked to the intersection, where the group of men had been earlier. The street looked ordinary, empty. But I could feel it, the planning, the memory of violence, the anticipation of something terrible. It lingered in the air, thick, tangible. Dad stopped, crouched slightly, scanning. "Keep your head down. We'll cross carefully." Eyes forward. I followed, each step deliberate, measured, heart-hammering. The red-haired woman and the leather jacket man were gone, but the city itself had marked us. Every brick, every crack, every shadow carried our intrusion, and then a faint sound, a horn, distant but sharp, carrying across the street. A taxi. My stomach twisted. I remembered the murmurs, the whispers, the planning, the attention we had felt. The presence we had glimpsed that afternoon. It hadn't been idle. Dad squeezed my hand. "Go," he whispered. "Stay with me." Eyes forward. We crossed the street, and for a brief moment, I felt lighter, almost normal. But the hum, the awareness, the psychic weight, it did not leave. It lingered, patient, watching, waiting for the next moment of fear. We reached the other side. The street looked empty. Safe? I didn't believe it. Not fully. Dad finally relaxed slightly. "We're clear," he said, though the line of tension in his jaw told me otherwise. "For now." I swallowed hard, realizing the truth. We had survived the day by luck, by caution, by instinct. But the shadow over the street, the attention, the planning, the unseen threat, it remained. Waiting, patient, hungry, and I knew, with a certainty that made my chest tighten, that we had only just glimpsed the edge of something terrible. The city remembered. And so did we.